All right, people. Review of the week time. So, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. A lot of it is going to be the recap of the show that happened last night, the Saudi show that happened in LA as part of Riyadh season. It was a long show, to say the least. I'm not going to start on that. Let's start on some of the lesser spotted boxing that happened over the course of the weekend, because I tried to kind of get a little bit of everything. Certainly, in the UK and Ireland and in the US, like kind of fights that happened that were noteworthy. And I know on the Zone last night, they had a show over in Belfast. It was actually a Conlon show. So Michael Conlon, Jamie Conlon, his brother, they obviously have their own promotional company, Conlon Boxing. They broadcast on the Zone. I think some of them are in association with Matchroom and some of them are standalone. Obviously, the one that Conlon did last December when he fought Jordan Gill, I was in association with Matchroom, obviously. This one was just a standalone, obviously. And it was headlined by Tyrone McKenna rematching Mohammed Mimu. I think is how you say his name. I always butcher his name. Now, they were selling this as repeat or revenge. And in reality, if you ever seen the first fight, had you watched the first fight, you would know that Tyrone McKenna got a gift. He got battered in that first fight. That first fight, you may remember, there was a thing in 2019, I think is when it started. It was meant to end. I think it pretty much coincided. I think it ended pretty much in the schedule. It was like a World Boxing Super Series Light. Let's just call it that. It was called the Golden Contract. And essentially what it was it was to give fighters who were, I don't say maybe necessarily unsigned. They might have had a promoter, but not a major platform to fight on. And I don't really know whatever became of the winners of it, because Ricards Bolotniks won it at light heavyweight, because light heavyweight was one of the divisions, and Ricards Bolotniks won that. He ended up, his reward was, I think, a Joshua Buatsi fight, which was kind of, okay, and he lost that fight. And then O'Hara Davis won it at £140. Now, for my money, Tyrone McKenna lost the first fight. And the reason why I think because if you watched it, I actually remember at the time, I think that was February 2020, February 2020. I remember it well because it was kind of like the precursor to the live watch-alongs. I remember at the time, I think I was doing a live stream, and I was previewing Fury versus Wilder. I think that was the fight. And I remember that happened to be on, it was on Sky Sports. And I was just watching it kind of in the background. And as the stream was going on, because this was before, I don't even think I went on camera for live streams back then. I was just kind of talking over it. And everyone in the chat at the time, and bear in mind, there's probably only about 30 people in it at the time. I think I only had just over 1,000 subs. Everyone thought McKenna lost. I thought McKenna lost. Everyone did. I think the reason why he got the nod was they were trying to build to an O'Hara Davis versus Tyrone McKenna final, which ultimately ended up happening because they had beef going back to some IFL clip or something like that. And I think that was the only reason why he got the nod, because he didn't win the fight, in my opinion. He got stopped in the 5th round this time. I see some people critiquing Mohammed Mamoon for the celebration. I don't mind seeing fighters celebrate, to be fair. It's different if they are stretched out, spaced out, like there's no movement. A body shot, yeah, I'm not too. I can see why some people didn't like it, but I'm not really gonna jump up and say, oh my god, it's a disgrace. Keeping a Jago return to the ring. Don't know what's happening with him. He was with Queensbury, then he was with Matchroom. Don't know what's happening with him. I seen this fight, Owen O'Neill versus Dylan Moran. These are kind of, lower level fighters in the nicest way. Dylan Moran, I remember him getting knocked out in the round by Marku last September. I think that was on the Eubank versus Smith 2 undercard. Owen O'Neill was previously undefeated, knocked him out, stopped him in the first round. Bit of a poor stoppage, but Owen O'Neill is a Belfast fighter. This was apparently at welterweight. And listen, I don't know Owen O'Neill. He seems like a nice guy. I've seen a couple of interviews from him. But, mate, seriously, in the nicest way, you're fighting at welterweight. Like, what the? I've never seen a welterweight in his poor condition. Like, Dylan Moran looked like a fighter who was in shape, who cut the weight right. And Owen O'Neill did not. Like, honestly, mate, I would say if you knocked a stone off, you could easily do lightweight. Easily. because I don't think you've any business up there at welterweight. So that was the card in Belfast. There was the boxer card. Now, I didn't preview this on Midweek Report for the simple reason I completely forgot this card was on. It had virtually no promotion that I could see, even on Twitter, or X as it's called now. So I only remembered this fight. I only seen it with the interviews from people like Johnny Nelson. I was like, oh crap. Yeah, I forgot Zach Chelly is fighting Callum Simpson. It just went under the radar. So much so, Ben Shalom didn't even attend it. He was over in the States at the Saudi show. So, yeah, not a great look. The card itself, the only real memorable moment, the only fight I watched was Stevie McKenna versus Joe Laws. Great fight. Absolutely flipping epic fight. Sky Sports rightfully put it up on their YouTube channel. Yeah, it's already doing pretty good views already. It was flipping brilliant. You know, Joe Laws, I remember him when he fought Ryland Charlton. He was unbeaten at the time. And that was on one of those behind closed door shows at Matchroom. Can't remember, it was late 2020, I remember that. And I remember Joe Laws getting beaten up pretty bad by Ryland Charlton. Joe Laws, to his credit, always comes to fight. He came out swinging in that first round, got countered a couple of times by Stephen McKenna. McKenna put him down. McKenna then punched himself. This is all in the first round. McKenna then punched himself out. Then Laws got back into it, dropped McKenna. McKenna was hurt by that knockdown, by the way. He was a lot more hurt than Joe Laws was. McKenna's able to survive the round. Action doesn't stop at round number 2. Round number 3, McKenna gets rid of Joe Laws with a body shot. Laws could have probably got up at the corner, threw in the towel anyway, so it was irrelevant. Referee waved it off at that point. I have to say, credit to Joe Laws. He knows himself he's not one of the best. He knows that. But my God, does he ever try. And you can't knock a trier at the end of the day. And he gave us, so did Steve McKenna as well, a brilliant fight. It's a fight that you'll go back and watch again. A 10-rounder, little WBC international title on the line. Doesn't matter. You go back and watch that again. I see Zach Chelly lost to Callum Simpson in the main event. Yeah, I didn't catch the fight. From what I seen on Twitter, the right guy won, and it was a fairly comprehensive win for Callum Simpson. So that was the boxer card in a nutshell. Now we get into the business end. Oh boy, we get into the business end of it now. Let's review, I should say, not preview, review the Riyadh season Saudi show that happened in the States last night. So, kicked off the prelims. I didn't see. I was actually out with my friend at the time, so I didn't see any of the prelims. I got home just in time to see Andy Cruz versus Antonio Moran. I had a real good look at Andy Cruz in this fight. He impressed me with a lot of things. He wanted to stop Moran quicker than Devin Haney did. Stopped him in the same round. But it was a good stoppage. It was a good, powerful, no issue with the referee stopping the fight. It was a very good clinical finish. Cruz had his moments though where he looked a little bit shaky. I think it was at round 3 or 4. It was like a shot that just caught Cruz kind of on the side of the head, maybe on top of the ear. Appeared to stun him a little bit. His equilibrium was definitely off. So he had to come through a couple of acid tests in this fight, but he came through it. The counter punching is on another level. The speed, the punch selection. I think Andy Cruz, he's probably not going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I like him. I do. I like him. I think that he is entertaining enough. He's not the most entertaining Cuban you'll ever see. I mean, there's not many of them, but this new generation, they are a little bit more entertaining, and I think he's going to be one of them. I think he has moments in fights where you're kind of like, come on, do something. And his corner did have to urge him to let his hands go a little bit more. Once he let his hands go, it was pretty much, that was it. It was a very good knockout as well. Dave Morrell getting a UD over Kaladzes. I expected more from Morrell now, I have to say. Kaladzes, he gave a good account of himself. He gave a good as he got. He won a couple of rounds in there, certainly. It was a Morrell fight, but I expected more from him. I really did. I expected a lot more from him. This is in no particular order, by the way. Isaac Cruz lost a split decision. Should have been unanimous to Jose Venezuela. I can't believe Chris Colbert beat him, because he looked brilliant last night. He really did. Cruz, listen, I like Isaac Cruz. I do. I think he's very talented. He's a very good pressure fighter. I think the Rolly fight flattered a lot of us. At the end of the day, he beat Rolly Romero. Rolly Romero, I said this about him for a long time. After he won his title from Ishmael Barras, I said that, or Israil Barroso, I said that this is the worst world champion in boxing, bar none. And any fighter with an ounce of talent gets a crack at him, they win. And Pitbull just happened to be the first guy to get the crack, and I said Pitbull will win, and he did. And I said he'd win pretty comfortably, and he did. Probably an unfair reflection on... Now, Pitbull's not a bad fighter, he's certainly not. But in there, I think he... Maybe it gassed him up a little bit as well. Thinking he can go in there, steamroll these guys. Listen, mate, you beat Rolly Romero in the nicest way. That's just, if people critique Joshua for beating Charles Martin, I would put them on the same level. Seriously. In terms of champion, it was an easy win. Kind of gassed him a bit. He looked very lethargic in there. He really did. Not impressed with what I seen from Pitbull. Venezuela dedicated the fight to his parents. Credit to him. He cried tears of joy, obviously, in the immediate aftermath. And the rightful winner. The rightful winner. Credit to him. Andy Ruiz versus Jerell Miller. Yeah, this one. So, I was disgusted, quite frankly, with Andy Ruiz's performance. Yes, the hand injury definitely played a factor in it. Certainly looked bad. But that doesn't take away how bad out of shape he was, how much he was breathing, how fatigued he got. I've always associated Andy Ruiz, I didn't say Andy Cruz the first time. I'm always someone who would associate Andy Ruiz with quite good stamina. Because he's never really had a stamina problem before. Now he does. And in there against Miller, I felt he got outworked. I felt that Miller, after round 4, took charge. If I had one critique of Jerell Miller, it was that he didn't push the action enough. I suspect that's coming from the fact that he fought Daniel Dubois. He gassed out quite badly in that fight. Ultimately, it led to him getting stopped. And he was probably wary of his gas tank. I thought he looked very good. The weight loss made a big difference. I think that if he takes more weight off, comes in about 280, 285, we could be looking at a good little fighter there. We could be looking at someone who has something still to offer the heavyweight division. Clearly takes a good shot. Yes, he's not the biggest puncher in the world. I think even he'll come out and say that. But he can outwork these guys. He can be on them like a bad smell. And I thought he beat Andy Ruiz. I thought it was a clear-cut win. I think the 8 rounds to 4 scorecard was spot on. I don't see how you could find another 4 rounds to give to Andy Ruiz. I really, genuinely don't. Did I say 4 rounds? Yeah. Another 2 rounds, I should say, to give to Andy Ruiz, because I'm making it out there like, what? 8? No. Another 2 rounds. It wasn't 6-6. You couldn't make that out. You couldn't make the case for him. You could maybe argue that maybe he could nick another round, in which case it'd be a 5-7. But no, I couldn't make a case for this fight being 6-6. No way. I watched Outmatch Boxing's post-fight review on this, and then he's of the same belief as me that, this was a Jerell Miller win, and pretty obviously a Jerell Miller win. He can feel aggrieved. He can feel hard done by. He hasn't lost the fight, but he's not won it. Andy Ruiz can feel relieved he hasn't lost the fight. He's not won it. He's got a draw. Outmatch mentioned that, and it's, to be fair, it is something that I didn't mention myself. Jerell Miller is a polarizing figure, to say the least. I don't like him as a person at all. The way he handled the failed PED tests, he's shown no remorse for those either. There's no remorse. I think he's something of a human. But in a boxing sense, I'll call it like I see it, he won the fight. Outmatch was saying that he feels that there was, I don't want to say karmatic element to it, because I'm one of those guys where I'm not someone who necessarily believes in karma myself. Some would argue maybe this was karma in action, that the fight that he should have won, a fight that could have really kickstarted Jerell Miller to getting possibly a title shot, he doesn't get the win, it's a draw. Maybe that's karma for everything. I don't know, man. I don't know. I've always been someone where I've always looked at karma and been thought, nah, I don't know. The only time I've ever, and I remember telling one of my friends over in the UK this story. The only time I ever saw something where what goes around comes around in my life was with my best friend in school. Because it was a funny story. In our last year in secondary school, and in secondary school in Ireland, by the way, is very different to secondary school in the UK. It's a different kind of way you do it all together. You just spend 5 years, maybe 6 years if you do an extra year in secondary school. You don't go to college, and you just stay in secondary school. But in our last year, I remember we heard a story about a guy in the year below us where he was in the toilet doing a number 2, and some guys from our year actually knew them. Used like a little kind of like a debit card, went like that to the door, popped it open, then took a picture of him on the toilet having a you know what, right? Just having a dump. We'll call it that, right? So when me and my best friend heard about that, we were only kids at the time, we were only about 17, we giggled about it, and this guy's name was Patrick, right? Not my friend, but the guy I happened to. So whenever that name would come up, even if it was St. Patrick's Day, my best friend used to say, so they'd say St. Patrick's Day, and he'd always go, took a big shite. Every single time. If there was someone even to just said hi Pat, but he just always interject, say, took a big shite. And we, one day, it was a Wednesday, we had English last class on a Wednesday, and in this particular class, we were near the end of the year, and the teacher said, you know what, go onto the computers, work on CVs and stuff like that, because we were graduating come what, the end of May. And that's what we did. I'm sat next to my best friend, and I get this smell, and I thought he's after farting. Me being the brilliant friend that I am, the great friend, he'll tell you that, I said nothing. I wasn't going to embarrass him. I'm not going to do anything. Just going to, there you go. Just, you've let your fart off. It stinks. But I'm not going to be a you know what and embarrass you and say, what did you do? It stinks. Problem was, 5 minutes later, that smell wasn't going anywhere. So I had to say something. I said, mate, did you let one off? And he said, no. He goes, I thought I was gonna, but it didn't turn out that way. And I kind of, you put two and two together, you know what happened. So I said, right. Now, luckily for him, it was the last class of the day. We were going home after this. But I mean, like, I'm surprised the teacher didn't say anything, because it was noticeable, this smell. It was flipping noticeable. And he says to me when we're leaving, he goes, you're going to have to walk behind me. And I said, because we wore school uniforms. And I said, is it like bad? He goes, I'm sitting on something. I was like, crap. Now, it was only about that size, the wet patch. No one would have noticed it, because even I was like, seriously, mate, who's going to be looking at your arse? No one. But he insisted I walk behind him. And I think that's the only time I can ever kind of say that's something karmatic. They didn't stop him saying Patrick took a big shite every chance he got after. But, you could argue that's karma. And that's a story I still giggle at to this day. Never forget it. But yeah, long-winded one on Jared Anderson. Long-winded one on Andy Ruiz versus Miller. You get a nice little G-Man story tale in there. Jared Anderson, Martin Bakole, fight of the night in my opinion. Performance of the night goes to Martin Bakole. I'm going to do a separate video on Martin Bakole and what I think his future fight could entail. They mentioned Michael Hunter. I agree. Sean Porter had a bit of a mare last night. But he did say I think it was Sean Porter anyway, who said he thinks Bakole is past Hunter. I think he is too. Like, if he wants to avenge that loss, yeah, I think he'd beat Hunter now. But, I think that might actually be a step backwards. And I like Michael Hunter, don't get me wrong, but it could very well be a step backwards. As for the main event, Terence Crawford, Israil Madrimov, need I say anything else? It was a good fight. Well, I don't say it was a good fight. It was a cagey fight. It was a decent fight. It wasn't the worst. The booing was a little bit unnecessary, I think. It was cagey, but it wasn't like Shakur Stevenson type, where you're just like, I refuse to watch his fights. I can't do it. But this wasn't like that. Madrimov had his moments, definitely. Crawford, that's the first time he's gone 12 full rounds, completed rounds. He's been into the 12th round before, but the first time he's gone 12 completed rounds since Victor Postal back in 2016. That was at 140 pounds. So his knockout streak comes to an end. Close fight, competitive fight, right guy won. I have no issue with the decision. Madrimov feels like he did enough to win, as he would. Certainly in a competitive, close nip and tuck fight like that, you would think that. But now I think Crawford did do enough to win. In my opinion, he definitely did. Now, the question becomes, Crawford against whom next? Ortiz? Boots? Canelo? I would imagine Turki Al-Sheikh is looking at Canelo Alvarez, and I would imagine that he is going to watch the Berlanga fight with a very close eye, as we all are. I don't think we expect Berlanga to upset the apple cart. I certainly don't. And I think the majority watching wouldn't expect him to. Stranger things have happened, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening. Therefore, you would look and you would say, okay, we could be likely seeing Canelo versus Terence Crawford. Now, I liked that fight originally. I was thinking, okay, that could be interesting. Crawford is so talented, he's so good that maybe he could have a chance. But seeing him in there at 154, this is 154, not 168. Two more weight divisions and 14 pounds extra. No, no. I think that he wouldn't be able to put a dent in Canelo with his punching power. I think Canelo will be able to hurt Crawford. He'll pick his shots too well. Canelo is slowing down. He's certainly not in his athletic peak anymore. I don't think there's any dispute in that. But I think maybe it is kind of what Hatman's saying. It's maybe not that he's really on a mad decline. He's not going to be as good as he is at 34 as he was at 28, 29. It's just not, it's not the case. But is he training with the same vigor, intensity? At the end of the day, Canelo Alvarez has generational wealth. He's done absolutely everything in boxing. He's a multi-weight world champion. He's been undisputed world champion for many years. Nearly 3 years. He's not undisputed now, obviously. He's been stripped of the IBF. But if he'd had gone through and fought that William Scully guy, he'd have 3 years undisputed, which is a long time to be champion, much less undisputed, have all the titles. Even unified champion, that's a long time. He's done everything. He's won world titles at 154, 160, 168, 175 against Kovalev. Is the hunger there? Does he need a really big fight like Terence Crawford? And it would be a big fight to get the best out of him. I think the best version of Canelo at 168 beats the best version of Crawford. And I don't think we have the best version of Crawford now. I think he's, again, like Canelo, he's not on a massive decline. But 37 years old against Alvarez, I'd be picking Alvarez probably on a wide points decision. Probably on a very wide points decision, but I wouldn't rule anything out, to be honest with you, if in that case, to be honest with you, because I think it could genuinely be Canelo having a way too much in the tank. So that is the card in a nutshell. Let's see what else we have. Caleb Plant versus Trevor McCumbee is now reportedly being rescheduled for the undercard of Canelo versus Berlanga. That undercard isn't shaping up to be too bad, if I'm not very much mistaken. I think I can't remember. Oh yeah, it's Danny Garcia versus Erislandy Lara. I knew there was a world title fight on it, and I was like, there's definitely a world title fight on there. That's a strange fight, to say the least. But Caleb Plant, yeah, I'll watch it. He's on one of Alvarez's undercards, okay. I will watch it, 110%. What else do we have here? Boots Ennis, yeah, ringside. I would sooner see Crawford against Boots Ennis, to be honest with you. I'd love to see that fight at 154 pounds. I genuinely would. I think it'd be a great fight at 154 pounds. And I think that Boots Ennis, I think maybe it's time for him to move up. I think maybe it is time. And I think at 154, Virgil Ortiz is there. At the end of the day, and it's kind of sad, really, when you think about it in a way. Welterweight has always been a division where, regardless of the generation, as in, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, there's always been an awful lot of talent in that division. Right now, it seems as just dull. I've never seen it this dull, certainly in recent memory. You take Boots Ennis out of the equation. Who else is there, really? Virgil Ortiz has gone up to 154. Terence Crawford is at 154. Spence is at 154. Don't know what Keith Thurman is doing. You just don't know what he's doing. You look at lightweight or super lightweight, 140, you're waiting on Josh Taylor, you're waiting on Catra, you're waiting on Prograis, you're waiting on Haney, you're waiting on Garcia. Probably is already there, Garcia, when he comes back. But you're kind of like, lads, hurry it up, move up to 147. Because that division is just, it ain't got nothing in it. And I've never seen welterweight as quiet as it is now. Never, honestly, never have. What else do we have? Jaime Munguia will face Eric Bazinian. I think is how you say that guy's name. Apparently, Munguia is with Top Rank now. And he's been with Golden Boy for years and years and years. So it's a strange one seeing him go to Top Rank now, of all places. Because I thought him and Golden Boy would have been, solid. They would have stuck together. And it's a loss for Golden Boy to lose Jaime Munguia, because Jaime Munguia is a very, very good fighter. He's a fighter you'd want, because he's not the star that Alvarez is, and maybe never will be, but he still has plenty to offer the sport. He still has plenty to give to the promoters, to give to the fans. I speak of him like he's an old guy. He's not. But I think there's still plenty of miles in Munguia, plenty of good shows, plenty of pay-per-views in him. So yeah, it's a loss for Golden Boy, but it's a game for Top Rank. What else is there? What else is there? What else is there? What else is there? There's genuinely not been an awful lot this week. Let's have a look see on boxing scene. You see, it's all about what happened last night, and to be honest with you, that's pretty much it. There's not a great deal actually about really anything else. Is there Crawford? It's literally all Crawford, Madrimov, Andy Ruiz, Andy Cruz, etc., etc. I think we spent the majority of this video just talking about the review of the card that happened last night. I know I seen Alexander Usyk and Tyson Fury kind of doing videos not together, but you know, Fury made a video, Usyk responded. Fury back in training, which is good to see. We know we know kind of it's a full schedule now. We really had a fairly dull month, the month of July. Saying that August is not, with the exception of the show we had last night, August is not really. Yeah, Catrall's meant to fight Prograde, that's off until October. So it's a bit on the dull side now, the month of August. In fact, I don't really think there's anything coming up of note anyway. Now, I haven't brought up the boxing scene articles, the box rec articles, so I don't really know fully. I can't think of any fights coming up now, certainly in the recent future. I know Frank has a show with Denzel Bentley in a fortnight's time, or a week's time or so, thereabouts, but that's really about it. So it's kind of quiet now, and then September it all kicks off. Canelo Berlanga, Joshua Dubois. October we have Bivol Beterbiev. November we don't have anything yet, and then we obviously have Fury versus Usyk. So it's a busy time coming up. It's going to be a mad end to the year, and hopefully I'd love to this month. Hopefully this month we can actually hit the 20k mark, because at the time of recording it is 5 minutes past 10 on Sunday evening. I need 180 subs to get to 20k. 180 subscribers off 20k. I got 50 subs in the last day, so we're doing pretty well. I know that's not always going to be the case, but that's pretty good going. So I would love to get 180 by the end of the month if we can, because I will be leaving here. This day, 2 weeks, will be the last review of the week I film where I'm sitting. Not the last one, because I'll come home for Christmas and I'll come home for the odd weekend to see friends. So there probably won't be the last one I film, but it'll be the last one for a while. Because Monday, August the 19th, we on to greener pastures. Hopefully. I say hopefully. We don't know yet. You can't tell, but hopefully we're on to greener pastures. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it's not got on too long now, because I was hoping to keep it under a half hour, but I think I've rambled on a bit. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. Peace.